and welcome to the Oregon Business Matters podcast, brought to you by Oregon Business and Industry, your statewide chamber of commerce. At Oregon Business Matters, we focus on insights, issues, and initiatives that impact Oregonians' shared prosperity and the state's economic health. I'm Angela Wilhelms, the president and CEO of OBI, and your host here at Oregon Business Matters. And today, folks, I got to tell you, today I have what might be the best view I've had in recording one of these podcasts. I am here with K.L. Wombacher, president and general manager of the Hillsboro Hops, an affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and we are recording this from the press box at the new Hillsboro ballpark. So we will talk a lot about that here in a bit. As we're having this conversation, less than 2 weeks have passed since the team's opening day this season at this brand new ballpark. I have to say, it's amazing. It's been called the new Taj Mahal for minor league facilities. And I'll admit, I haven't seen a ton of minor league facilities, but I doubt that statement is wrong. So kudos to the team at Mortensen Construction for the work they did in building it. And we're going to not just talk about the building today. The Hillsboro Hops are, in fact, a small business, a terrific community partner, and I know you're going to enjoy today's conversation. So thank you, KL, for joining me today.
Thanks for being here. This is a nice view.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, so, let's just start and tell our listeners who are from around the state a little bit about the Hillsboro Hops. What's the team's affiliation, level of competition, history here in the area, et cetera?
Yeah, so the Hillsboro Hops have been around for decades, really. Started in Salem, Oregon years and years ago, then moved to Yakima, Washington in 1990, and then relocated back to Oregon in 2012 for the 2013 season. We've been affiliated with the Arizona Diamondbacks since 2001, and we're a single A affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks. We've had close to 60 players make the major leagues that have played here in Hillsboro, so it's definitely a great feeder system for Arizona. And we are one of the 120 teams that are part of the MLB's Professional Development League, which was started in 2001 when they took over the minor leagues. And it's been a great run here in Hillsboro, and excited to get this new ballpark open now.
Yeah, this is great. Well, like you mentioned, teams like the Hops develop talent that goes on to the big leagues. Who are some of the players that our listeners might recognize?
Well, probably the biggest name is Dansby Swanson. He's won a World Series with the Atlanta Braves, multi-year All-Star, plays for the Cubs now. His wife might even be more famous than him, plays soccer for Chicago. But he's definitely, when he was the number one overall pick in 2015 out of Vanderbilt, had won the College World Series with Vanderbilt, so definitely came with a lot of fanfare. Number two is probably Corbin Carroll. Corbin played here in 2019 and 2021, multiple year All-Star, was in the World Series with the Diamondbacks a couple of years ago. One of the most exciting young players in the game. Geraldo Perdomo is the D-back shortstop. He's been a multiple year All-Star. Had a really nice year last year. Brandon Pfaadt, who pitched here just a few years ago, pitched Game 3 of the World Series a couple of years ago, pitched Game 7 of the NLCS against the Dodgers. So he's been in some big moments. So it's been fun. I mean, these players, when they play for us, are normally 20, 21 years old, and just a couple of years away from the big leagues. So, it's seeing them get to that moment, watching them in All-Star games, watching them play in the World Series is pretty special.
Yeah, what an important role that, a team like this plays in their future and, in the future of the MLB, but also such an important role right here in the community. And I think that's something that often goes unaccounted for, undiscussed a little bit amid the excitement and enthusiasm of the sport and the fanfare. But I want to come back to the business and the team. But first, I want to ask about you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How does someone become president and general manager of a team like the Hops?
Well, started, I think as a kid, I was always around athletics, played 3 sports, tried to play basketball in college, and didn't quite work out because I was only 6'1" and didn't play defense, but just, loved being around sports. And when I was in college, realized that I wouldn't make the NBA. I had to find a second career and learned that you could work in sports and get paid to work in sports and be around sports. So I was able to switch my major to more of a sport management focus. Started as an intern in 2001 when the team was in Yakima, and just loved it. I mean, every day going to the ballpark for my job, just couldn't believe that I was getting paid to work in baseball. My goal was to work in baseball a couple of years, get some experience, and then go work for the Seattle Sonics back in the day. Just being a huge basketball fan, I thought that was my calling to work in that sport. But the longer I've been in baseball, the more I've realized it's better to not work in your favorite sport, because you can be a fan in the off season of your favorite sport, but then really focus on everything behind the scenes in the fan experience, and you don't get wrapped up in the sport as much. So I think for me, working in baseball as long as I have has been the right fit for me. I became GM in 2005. And it was kind of a right place, right time. The GM at the time, Bob Romero, who was definitely my biggest mentor, taught me a ton in 3 years. He was going to leave the organization after about 11 or 12 years, and felt that they would promote me as GM, even though I was 24, 25 years old. But I realized that being in a small market at the time, willing to take a very low pay for a GM, provided me the opportunity to take that on. And it was a huge learning experience. I mean, but I was always the type of person that I was never the smartest, kind of the C's get degrees type of a student. But I grew up in construction with my dad, and my dad would drag me out of bed at 6 a.m. on Saturdays to go clean up job sites. So he taught me the value of going above and beyond, putting in extra hours. Between that and hearing all the things about Michael Jordan being the first person to the gym and the last person to leave, I just always developed that kind of mindset of I've got to go above and beyond and outwork everyone.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great. And that's frankly, whether you're the president of a baseball organization or the president of some other small business, that's what a lot of people are putting in. And I think, again, that goes unnoticed and unaccounted for. I also want to ask you a little bit, and I know they're not very public people, but I think one of the things that makes this team so special are the owners. Mm-hmm. And so if you can just maybe talk a little bit and share a little bit about them with our listeners, I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with them since 2001. They've provided me with a tremendous amount of opportunities. Since I've started working for them in 2001, Laura McMurray has not missed a single game. She's been at every single game. Mike has only missed 2 games, and they've both been for meetings in New York with the commissioner's office. So
I suppose that's a fair.
Yeah, that was a good excuse. But they're tremendous people. They love baseball. I mean, they're just baseball fanatics. They sit in their season tickets every single game, every night.
Laura's usually got the book.
Laura's
right?
got the scorebook out. I used to say Laura keeps score every game, and then Mike paces the concourse in the 8th inning when the team's down by 2. They love the game. They love being part of player development. They love seeing these players go on to live their dreams in the major leagues, and they love being a small piece of that player development piece. But I think the most of all, they love being in the community, and they really value what a sports team can bring to a community. They've always lived in the city. They've owned the team, so they're not out-of-town owners, which is why they come to every game. But they're very humble people, but they lead with their hearts when it comes to their sports team. And what they've allowed us to do as an organization. They don't really pull money out of this organization. And so any dollar we make typically goes back into the fan experience and to the community. And being able to run a sports team like that, where you're not really you're not focused on maximizing the bottom line. We have to be financially responsible and fiscal, but at the end of the day, we can pour a lot more into the fan experience.
Well, and then they've also done, and you guys have all leaned in as an organization to the foundation and what that gives back. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it was year 1 or year 2, we started the Hillsboro Hops Foundation, and basically our nonprofit arm. We have donated in the first decade, we reached the $1 million mark, and all of that money goes into youth baseball, youth softball, and education. So our biggest thing is our pillars are getting kids active, predominantly around our sport, baseball, softball, and then providing education opportunities. So we have a scholarship program for first-generation college students that's gone extremely well. We launched that a few years ago. And every year we've been giving out pretty much $100,000 plus grants. We have anywhere between 50 and 60 grant applications that we authorize every year. And we've done everything from build fields to renovating dugouts to providing uniforms, providing scholarships. It's really based on the need of the applicant. And so it's not us giving them money and telling them what to do with it. It's responding to the needs that they value most.
Yeah, that's a terrific community reinvestment. Okay, so back to the team itself a little bit, let's still stick with the organization, but more back to the baseball side of it. How many employees do you guys have here?
Full-time, we've been growing, so I think we're up to about 32 to 34, including our food and beverage staff. When we moved the team here, we had 4 back in 2012. That was too few, I can tell you that much.
That sounds too few.
And then on our game day roles, with grounds crew, food and beverage, ushers, everything, I think we're pushing 300.
Yeah, that is again terrific community investment, and we'll come back to sort of the sports ecosystem and what that means for an economy. But okay, so we're in this facility. I bragged about it at the top in the intro, but let's talk about this stadium. It's impressive, but you didn't just wake up, a couple of years ago and think, you know what? I think we should build a new facility. There's rationale behind this. There's funds to raise. So what, and there was an element here, the MLB plays a role in the motivation. So talk about the motivation, the why, and then we'll talk about the how.
I mean, it really starts with when we moved the team here in 2012. Hillsboro was a tremendous partner. They built the stadium. It was about a 9-month project, $15 million. And the goal was really to get the team here, get it relocated from Yakima, establish the territory. The Portland Beavers had just left a couple years prior. And so we had to move quickly to establish the territory. From there, we knew that eventually we signed a 20-year lease. So we knew, after the first 8 to 10 years, we were going to have to find a permanent home. So we really started just kind of kicking the tires in 2018, 2019, looking at different sites, different cities, different real estate plays, knowing that we had probably a 10-year runway to figure it out and have that kind of more permanent home. But then in 2020, 2021, Major League Baseball took over the minor leagues, started a new player development system called the Professional Development League, and all of the 120 teams had to sign new contracts with Major League Baseball. They were 10-year agreements, and the biggest element of that agreement was new facility standards. And the facility standards hadn't been updated since 1990, so it was long overdue. But there was a pretty quick turnaround on meeting those standards, about 3 years. So that hit the hyperspeed button for us, and we had to jump into action right away. We didn't have the 10-year runway we thought we had to build a new facility. We either had to renovate to meet new standards or build new. And so we spent about a year and a half, almost 2 years on the renovation plan because we thought that would be more economical. That was the city's priority. We had a great ballpark already. People loved it. And when we got to the end of design and seeing construction prices, it just wasn't a good use of money. And so that's where we started to pivot on the new facility.
Yeah. So obviously it's a baseball field, but it's not just a baseball stadium. So talk a little bit about what your plans for, and when you designed it, you had this in mind, but I'm excited for this. But talk a little bit about what else you envision happening here between events and of different stripes.
Well, it was one of those things that, I mean, really, I give a lot of credit to the Dallas Cowboys for starting this, more than a decade ago, where they built a $1.2 billion stadium, privately funded, and everyone thought they were crazy. But they did it because they saw it as a year-round entertainment destination and a year-round moneymaker. And that's why they invested private funds. And, now everyone is trying to one-up them with a $5 billion stadium in LA and, $2 billion in Nashville. And, so it's now a trend. So we kind of stood back and said, all right, what does this community need? What are we lacking? if we're going to make an investment, let's go all in and let's build a venue that's going to attract events. And they don't just have to be baseball events. That's our prime tenant. So baseball gives us 66 games. MLB, the minor league baseball gives us the 66 games of revenue. But what can we do with the other 200 days, 300 days of the venue to whether it's create entertainment, create revenue, to help support the debt service, whatever it is. And so the second pillar became concerts. There's been a huge demand for outdoor concerts in the Portland metro. We had conversations with concert promoters, and they've tried to build outdoor facilities for many years in the Portland metro. The Bend Amphitheater has been extremely successful, and so we kind of looked around and said, maybe that's us. What if we could build an amphitheater we could play baseball in instead of a ballpark that we could maybe do concerts in? And so we spent a lot of the design focus on how does this become a great concert venue that we can play baseball in?
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to that. So very, very anxious to see some of the announcements as you get that up and running. But first, you had to get baseball up and running. We're a little ways into the season. How's it going so far?
So far, it's been great.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 games under our belt. We had some weather challenges over the weekend, so we probably lost a little bit of crowd on our first weekend. But opening day was unbelievable on last Tuesday. It was by far the best day of my career. But, you hear people talk about like dream come true, and it was. I mean, we dreamed of this venue 5 years ago, 6 years ago. All the challenges and roadblocks and ups and downs and everything that went along the way to be able to sit back on last Tuesday, opening day, and see the place full of people, see the joy on people's faces, see everyone taking videos and photos and grabbing a beer and then making a lap around the whole venue, taking it in from different angles. I mean, every 2 innings, I would try to just stop and watch people and just listen to what they're saying, the comments, and I mean, how many like wows I've heard, or this is beautiful, or it was just such an amazing experience and so validating for all the kind of ups and downs and challenges we faced, and validation for everyone that stepped up to help us too. I mean, including OBI, we had a bunch of people that were pounding the fist on the table saying, we got to do this. We got to do this. We can't lose the hops. We can't lose them to a different state. But we need venues like this in our community.
Yeah, let's touch on that a little bit because, and not to spoil or give away the lead, listeners, but we also have an upcoming episode with Jim Etzel from Sport Oregon where we dive a little more deeply into a report Sport Oregon did about the economic impact of spectator and participatory sports. And Sport Oregon and OBI and others have been on this kick for a while that the facility and infrastructure investment is a huge part of economic development. So more on that is coming, but I do want to ask a little bit about that because that's a piece of this. You've talked about concerts on the walk-in. We were talking about other community events that can be done in your space. People can rent that and use it as an event venue for a banquet or any other type of event. We've talked about the community building, the foundation, but it takes infrastructure, and that is not cheap, and especially for smaller businesses to get that capital. So you did get some public funding for that. Talk a little bit about that and maybe a little more about why that infrastructure investment just matters so much to the ecosystem.
Yeah, the line we used a lot was the best venues get the best events. So if we as a community want to bring concerts to town, we want to bring I've had a lot of people, hey, can you go get the Savannah Bananas? If we want to bring Banana Ball to town, if we want to bring the Pac-12 postseason championship to town, we have to be competitive. And to be competitive, we have to have the best venue. And so from day one, that was the vision, was we have to build venues that can then attract events. For example, we will hopefully have it rescheduled, but the Civil War game with the Oregon State baseball hasn't been in the Portland Metro in 17 years. We tried to recruit it to our old stadium, and it was kind of like, we're good. All of a sudden, we build this, and the game sold out in 45 minutes. So you need these venues to draw big-time events. So when it came to the investment strategy of this venue, we don't have, billionaire owners that can just fund this themselves like the Dallas Cowboys. We had to be pretty creative. And so our strategy was to try to take on as much private debt as we could, assuming that the venue could support that private debt. So we did 2 different feasibility studies by different companies to try to understand what that debt load could look like. From there, we needed some equity because there's no zero down loans for $150 million, we found out. And so the public money became kind of that equity part of this. And we wanted to be able to say, hey, we're going to do as much private money as possible. If we could do it all, we would, but we can't. So this needs to be some sort of partnership between public funding and private funding. And the private funding will be the majority of the debt. And so we were able to determine it's probably going to be in the 120 to 150 million range, all in. We thought 120 and it'd be in 154. But from there, we knew we could do about 100 to 110 million in private debt. We found a partner in Barclays, and from there we went to the city first to see what the city could do on the public side. They were able to leverage some transit lodging tax money that wasn't going to anywhere at the time and needed to be spent on more tourism-driven facilities or strategies. So that worked out well. And then we went to the state, and we thought the state could kind of fill that gap between the city and state. The county was had a lot of budget challenges, so we were trying to stay away from that. And ultimately, the state wasn't able to come up with the money the first time around or the second time around. And so we went to the county and to see if they could help out a little bit to help fill that gap, to maybe go back to the state a third time with a smaller ask. And the county was able to come up with, again, some lodging tax money that could go in and brought the state ask down to 15 million. And so that was the last piece and the most challenging, really, which, we could argue why. But that's where we had to activate everybody and really convince people that this wasn't an expense. This is an investment. Showed a lot of numbers of income tax generation, economic impact. I mean, we spent a lot of time and resources on justifying this as an investment for the state rather than just an expense. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, we were able to be successful, and it was a huge win for the community, and it created a public-private partnership with the city, county, state, Explore Tualatin Valley, and the Hops to fund this project at $154 million.
Yeah, I think it's great. And you touched on a couple of things that I just want to echo. One is this notion of investment. Public investment shouldn't be a giveaway. That's not good. That's OBI will be the first to say that's not good. But public investment where there's a return on that investment in the form of income tax revenue or corporate income tax revenue or just economic activity in the income tax. When we're an income tax-based state, that's what we got to be looking at. And this is a good example of a relatively low public side investment between all 3 of those levels that returns tax, revenue back to the system. And so there is an ROI here for these things, and it's the smart play, so to speak. The other thing you touched on is the transient lodging tax, which is an important source of revenue for economic development and tourism-related activity, because that brings money in. It's what makes sports, a sort of quote-unquote traded sector kind of activity. And when we have conversations about diverting that money to other purposes, we're taking it away from, again, an opportunity for real ROI, which is that investment in projects like this that will see that return. I think it's important to raise those issues in policy settings. And I'm sorry it took 3 years to get through it, but I think it actually allowed a lot of people to have a lot of good conversations about what the role of some of those things are. And so.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned is helping reprioritize where money goes, whether it's state, county, or cities, to create more balance between investments and whether you want to call it social services or I don't know what how all those terms are used, but there should be some sort of balance there. I mean, the comment we heard the most at the state level was, okay, we can't help with the ballpark. We have a fentanyl problem, or we can't help with the ballpark. We have a homelessness problem, or we can't help with the ballpark because we have this. And so it wasn't that they didn't have the money to spend. It was really about prioritization. And so where we finally became successful is it kind of clicked with us of, okay, we get it. But without this ballpark, you lose the income that you have now. So, and you lose the future income. So you're going to have less money, and it's not, we're not talking trailblazer money, but you're going to have less money in the future to fund all those other items. And so if you can shift some money, make some investments that then are going to have a positive ROI, then you can grow the pot to have more money to take on those challenges in the future.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's nobody's saying we shouldn't be investing in those challenges and solving those. It's how do we maximize that return to grow the economy so that we can make those investments in the social services and policy spaces we need to. And this is an example of one such opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's sorry, but I think
ahead.
it's pretty interesting now. I mean, we obviously had a vision. We've been to other ballparks. We've been to other cities across the country that have done this. So we knew from day one what kind of impact it could make on a community. It was really, really challenging to take that vision and explain it to people and allow them to see it, especially because we had an existing ballpark. We're still facing that with potential sponsors and ticket holders and stuff like that. I think the attitude was, oh, we've seen the hops build a ballpark. Like, we kind of know what that looks like. But then people come here and they're like, oh, wow, this is different.
It is different.
This is way different. And we can now start to see the impact of what a facility like this can make on a community. And when we look back at our ask of, like, for example, state funding $15 million, like, this is going to be one of the best $15 million the state has ever spent.
It's going to be pretty good. And if I recall, when I was here, some of the team was here the other night. First, kudos to your front office staff for helping my purchasing of the tickets. They were great to work with. They always are. So kudos to them. But if I recall, there are Portland State banners hanging on the other ballparks. So it just goes to show too that you're not abandoning. It's not some derelict facility that's sitting over there now not being used. It's now we've expanded the opportunity in this space.
And we're bringing AUSL to town, so we'll have pro softball that will launch here in a couple of months. Only 6 teams throughout the country, and we got one of them because we had the facility.
That is very cool. Okay, just a couple of last quick questions for you. One of the things I think that's cool around here is the detail and the design. I noticed the wallpaper, is got hops, and some of the light fixtures are hops. And are there any other teams with a plant as their mascot?
I don't.
Maybe I guess you mentioned the bananas earlier.
Yeah,
but
Savannah bananas. There's been a couple that have tried to do alternate identities of like grapes or something like that. But we're the best, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, but I do have to, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bring up a competitor here. When it comes to alternate identities, Oregonians listening to this podcast will know that why I might have a special love for the sweatshirt I bought when the Eugene Emeralds did the exploding whales as their alternate identity. So that there is some fun to be had with the mascots. But I think you guys have managed to turn a crop into a pretty awesome and fun mascot. So kudos.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we launched the logo, we hired a guy named Dan Simon who does a ton of logo work for Major League Baseball, NFL, everything, probably 30-year history. And when we gave him a list of team names, he said, the Hops, you're the Hops. You should be the Hops. And I will make that little hop a superstar.
Yeah, well, he did. So, congratulations on all the success and growth the team has had. Thank you for being here in Hillsboro. To the entire organization, we are grateful. It's a great place to come. If you have not been, out to a Hillsboro Hops game. I highly encourage it. It's a wonderful place to spend an evening. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before I let you go?
Just excited to host people this summer. We think it's going to be a tremendous year as the weather continues to warm up. This is going to be the place to be.
And where can people find more info or follow you on social?
Hillsborohops.com is the best resource. Hillsborohops.com/tickets. And we've got Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of those good ones.
All right, good. Well, listeners, thank you for tuning in. KL Wombacher, President and General Manager of the Hops, thank you for joining me. The Oregon Business Matters podcast is a production of Oregon Business and Industry, your statewide chamber. Our episodes can be found on all the top podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, YouTube. You know where to find them. Please like and follow. For more information about OBI, visit OregonBusinessIndustry.com. Thank you very much.